And we are recording episode 671 with Mr. James Koutoulas. And for all future listeners, today's Tuesday, January 18th, 2022. So tried to get Brandon, or let's go Brandon sponsored, and NASCAR revoked it, saying, if I'm correct, that it's political, but you can have a BLM car, which I'm for too. You can do that. But for everyone that hasn't listened to the last episode, introduce yourself real quick and tell them about how you are the slayer of Goldman Sachs and how you don't give a shit, and that's why I love you.
Well, actually, I do give a shit. That's
Oh,
why I go after the bad guys, right?
You know what I mean, yeah.
But yeah, I'm a hedge fund manager. I'm also a lawyer. As we talked about the last podcast, my kind of claim to fame was I was the lead counsel in a global bankruptcy, recovered all 6.7 billion in client assets pro bono with a team of 3 people against Clinton's FBI director, Obama's attorney general, trustee from Lehman Brothers, and yeah, that was the former CEO of Goldman Sachs, John Corzine, who stole 1.6 billion from his own customers to cause that 8th largest bankruptcy in U.S. history. So yeah, I don't get intimidated by scumbags. There's a lot of them out there, and NASCAR is the latest on my list. And you said that they said it was political. Actually, they didn't say anything. Okay, their director of operations, I think his name's Dale Howell, approved the sponsorship in writing. Some people online have tried to say that like we try to pull a fast one on NASCAR. Okay, the car's owner had discussions with NASCAR back in November that they don't want the phrase "Let's go Brandon" trackside, but it's okay off track. Okay, like the LGB coin was okay. Like there's pictures of me with Brandon himself in the pits in November wearing an LGB coin shirt. Okay, NASCAR was aware of that, right? They actually banned another driver who said the phrase in defiance of their dystopian mandate to not say "Let's go" driver's name from the pits. I think it was Ford actually banned him from driving their equipment. So Ford, in that case, if I have the facts straight, was that particular commie. But there was not a fast one poll. This was approved. Okay, the link to the website was given to them. They were allowed to review the website ahead of time. So the ownership group was completely upfront, and we have indications that it was NBC is embarrassed by the phrase because it points out how Kelly Stavas lied blatantly on air about what the crowd was actually chanting. And it's really that message, I think, is why the phrase "Let's go Brandon" resonates with people so strongly, because it's not just code for what the crowd was chanting, right? And some people, they do use it as a double entendre for that. But I think the more powerful message is that we as Americans are sick of being lied to by the media and by the government about what the truth is. Okay, you've heard Trump talk about fake news. You've had the left talk about fake news. Okay, both sides are just sick of people lying to our faces. Okay, and COVID, you just saw like a year plus ago, Fauci was on video saying masks don't work. Okay, like it's pointless to wear them, save them for the healthcare workers, right? Then a month later, they're like, you gotta wear masks, and you should double mask, you should triple mask, like mask all the time, right? And then just like I think it was yesterday or the day before, because the New York Times conceding that the CDC finally admits, well, different masks have different levels of efficiency. No, really?
And that medical contributor, sorry to cut you off, that medical contributor on CNN, Chen, didn't she say towards the end of December, she said, get an N95. Cloth masks are a little more than decoration.
I didn't hear her say that, but it's true, right? And anybody who knows anything about data analysis and who could read studies knows that it's true. Okay, so so then you got to ask, okay, well Fauci knew that it was true, a year plus ago. That's why he said it. Okay, and look, if someone, I do tell people, if you are legitimately concerned about COVID, if you are at risk, right, if you're a morbidly obese old person with heart disease and diabetes, get a whole bunch of N95s and wear a brand new one that's properly fitted every day, and you're gonna be okay, right? But if you're a normal person for which you have, a 99.98 survival rate or whatever it is from COVID, right? Like you can't let this ruin your whole life. But you got to ask, why have they been so insistent on these cloth mask wearing? And I think there's a couple of reasons, right? Like you look at like the Met Gala, where AOC went with her tax the rich dress made by someone who's a tax evader. With there's a lot of politicians who just get off on being hypocritical. People call them out and be like, oh, AOC wearing that dress to hang out at $35,000 plate gala is so hypocritical. Don't you think she knows that? She knows it, okay? But bad people like her get off on being hypocritical, just like how Gavin Newsom got off on having a maskless indoor dinner with doctors at the French Laundry. Well, every restaurant in California was closed, okay? It makes insecure, power-hungry people feel powerful to be hypocritical and say, these are the rules for everybody else, but I'm big and powerful, so I don't have to follow it, right? And so, to this day, even in Miami, where like we've lived a virtually restrictionless life for 19, 20 months now, right? I mean, we kind of knew what was up by like April, May 2020. Okay, you still go to restaurants, you go to establishments where you have like working class people and they're all in masks, right? And it creates this like psychological dual class structure of society where you have the mass class that is somehow inferior to the wealthier people who don't have to wear masks. And I think a part of that is that people like AOC want to feel superior. Who, by the way, she was just maskless here and got COVID at a drag show, right? Which I got to confess, my friend, someone we work with, took that video, and
shit.
I personally sent that to Brendan Leslie, who got it like viral. So I'm not going to out my buddy who who sent me that, but I'm proud to have a little
unsung heroes.
Facilitate her hypocrisy and karmic payback being exposed.
Sure.
Right. But no, like to me, whenever I see someone in a cloth mask, I feel really uncomfortable, right? That they're either being forced to do that by their employer, and like a lot of, you work at a restaurant, right? Like, or you're delivering stuff, like you probably don't have that much runway for cash flow, right? So like these people have very little choice but to, accept it. And, but like you just lose so much of humanity by not seeing people's faces, right? And I think it's just part of this kind of overarching, goal of those who hate America to create this division, create like this dual class society, put, this kind of like psychological terror into people. Like you have, I think it's a combination of fear in a lot of people, like, and it's fear of COVID, fear of losing your job, etc. And it's just not healthy for the overall psyche of the country. So for me, like, I hate the tribalism that American politics have devolved into. Like, I want a unified America. I want Americans to be happy. I want us to be successful. I want us all to be free. But unfortunately, this division is real. And I think that those of us who realize what Fauci said, one of the few true things the guy has said in, the last 20 months was that cloth masks don't work. I think that we all need to agitate and not wear them and not put up with this bullshit until they go away, because I think that non-at-risk people being in mass all day is very detrimental to the mental health of the nation.
Yeah, and they
don't work.
Well, and that little factoid, but what you also have is, and I think you hit the nail on the head. It's the meaning of what media dishonesty is, right? People are like, why do people say, let's go Brandon? Why don't you just grow a pair and say, fuck Joe Biden? Well, sure. Yeah. Fuck Joe Biden, fuck Donald Trump. But yeah, whatever you want. Let's go Brandon. Sure. There's there is the coded message, right? You can kind of say it in public, right? It's kind of like, it's kind of like using sign language around blind people or something. You can kind of, say it out there, which is terrible, but like, there's that, but there also is something much bigger though, right? Because that was, I couldn't think of anything. I was trying to make this heartfelt analogy.
That's not nice. That's not nice.
It was horrible. I genuinely didn't mean the point's this.
You should just edit that whole scene out.
I will if you'd like.
I know you're not that needy.
That was a terrible analogy. It's like speaking Spanish around a guy that only speaks English. You can kind of say it out there. That was a terrible, but listen, the point's this. What we saw was a direct, right? We always see these sort of, there's a delay there's almost like you see the explosion and then there's the shockwave. You hear the statement, and then it comes out that it's a lie, right? With the masks, or you could even say 20 years later with WMDs in Iraq, right? We have these delayed moments. What was so big about the Let's Go Brandon thing is it was like when CNN had that headline, fiery but mostly peaceful protests, and you're seeing it with
Right,
your
same
own
thing.
eyes. It's the what it
Well, and
is
that's very ironic with the Let's Go Brandon, since, fake hate crimes are okay with NASCAR, and
yes,
BLM inciting riots and burning businesses. That's okay. That's okay for NASCAR. But, a very polite way of saying, a multi-tiered complex thing, which no one's died because of Let's Go Brandon. No businesses have been burned because of Let's Go Brandon. But that's banned.
but and so what it is it's above all else, because like anyone can say fuck Joe Biden, right? You can make up a code for whatever. That doesn't matter. It's not that. What it is it was a real time example of
Mm-hmm.
seeing with your eyes and ears what they were chanting, fuck Joe Biden, and a woman smiling, going, "Let's go, Brandon." It's when you see those videos that people take in North Korea, and it's like a woman, saying she's like, in 1945, North Korea defeated the United States, and like you're going, wait, hold on, it's like the movie
What?
The Interview, where it's like, he has no need for a butthole, like he simply burns off the energy, and it's like sometimes it's the Tiananmen Square picture where it's yes, the
Right.
Chinese Communist Party is terrible, but it's also what that stands for. Nothing happened on this day. You didn't see a tank. It's a symbolism much deeper.
Mm-hmm.
It's the dishonesty in the media that you saw with your own eyes, and I think that's what Let's Go Brandon stands for. And I think that that's probably why, just like you have them all attacking Joe Rogan, it's nothing that Rogan
Mm-hmm.
did. It's they're projecting
Let's
their own
cancel him.
yeah, just
Let's cancel
get rid
Rogan.
of
Let's
them.
cancel Malone. Anybody who tells the truth, we're going to cancel. Okay. Just like Let's Go Brandon. We want to tell the truth and point out the media's lying, cancel us.
Sure. Yeah. And then, and guys like me, I did get canceled for interviewing Malone and McCullough. I did get banned, but you look at someone like Rogan and it can't be done. So you have this, right? You have the 300 doctors all signing a letter to Spotify, right? Or you have
And
Joe
most of
Budden.
them were doctors.
They weren't doctors, and that has nothing compared to the 16,000. That's yeah. So, but the point is, they can't lose the grip on the narrative, because what this is it's so much larger than COVID. It's so much
Yeah.
larger than Brandon. What it is it's their ability to control anything from weapons of mass destruction to, we're not going to let the housing bubbles pop, to whatever. It's the control of that, which is so much deeper because it transcends any one issue in any one decade. We got to go to Vietnam. We got to go to Korea. We got whatever. And that's what it is. So, with that, what maneuvers or what paths are there for you guys to get the car sponsored? Is it still on the table?
Well, so listen, I mean, I'm a difficult person to cancel, right? Because I don't really care, like
Yeah.
you said earlier. So my first priority, though, is taking care of Brandon Brown, okay? Because Brandon is an innocent victim here. Okay,
Yeah.
Brandon just had the biggest moment of his life. You want to tell a day guy, he's sitting here, you could see like the joy in his face. He's so excited. And I spent a little bit of time with him. He's just like a nice guy, man.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't want to cause any problems. The guy just wants to drive fast, win races, shake and bake. Like he's just a good dude.
Yeah.
Okay. So my first priority is I want to make Brandon really rich. Okay. Because of this. Like it's not fair to him that his career has been hurt by this. Okay. Like he's one of the most promising young racing drivers out there. And look, if I can make enough money to buy a Formula One team and have him drive that,
Dude.
cancel NASCAR, awesome. Right. But even with NASCAR, and by the way, illegally revoking our sponsorship. And first thing I'm doing is suing them. There's a legal concept goes back to the 1700s called promissory estoppel, right? So they gave us a proper in writing approval of the sponsorship from the director of operations, and people relied on that. They acted on it. People bought LGB coin. Like LGB coin had a $300 million aggregate market cap at the time of the announcement. Right after the announcement, it soared to 580 million. Okay, and by the way, NASCAR didn't even have like the honor, the integrity to put out a release saying they were revoking it. They like leaked it through the media. That's what cowards do, right? But so after they cowardly revoked this, the coin went down to half of its pre-announcement point. So it's 150 million. So anybody who relied on their in writing approval of this has a claim against NASCAR.
Sure.
Okay, they relied on that. It's called reliance interest. It's one of the oldest concepts of contract law, quasi-contract law, and estoppel. Okay, so look, I've sued the biggest bank in the world and won. I sued the board director of the FBI and won. Sued the trustee from the biggest bankruptcy in history and won. I've gone up against Obama's attorney general. You think I'm afraid of NASCAR?
That's what I was about to. That's what I was about to say. Yeah,
right? Like Steve Phelps, bro. Come on, like the next couple of months aren't going to be fun for you, dude. I'm sorry. And NASCAR, along with their cowardliness, the day after they revoked this through leaks, they announced a sponsorship with like the Carolina LGBT community, okay, to like troll us, right? And to try to like trade off of our brand. Okay, and look, I don't have the rainbow LGBT car.
Yeah.
Don't care.
Go for it.
Okay, if they're paying for it, freedom of speech, go for it. Okay. But don't approve us, then cowardly kowtow to like NBC or maybe the administration, okay? Like illegally revoke our approved sponsorship through leaks, okay? And then try to play off our brand with your like obscure Carolina chapter, okay? Like do your Carolina thing, I don't care. We can have the LGBT car race the LGBT car. And by the way, we have members in the LGBT community who own LGB coin. Yeah. Okay, like the gay who strayed, who's one of my favorite Instagram accounts, she probably falls into both demographics. Okay, like we're not haters. Yeah. Okay, but the way they did it, was cowardly, and I'm going to hold them accountable. Okay, so that's number one. Okay, number two, we double down on our financial commitment to Brandon through an off-track sponsorship, which NASCAR can't control. Albeit, I feel bad that it's probably awkward for Brandon that, that he's got an off-track sponsorship by someone who has been illegally revoked by NASCAR, and, that we are, encouraging LGB coin holders or anybody who believes in the Let's Go Brandon movement to cancel NASCAR, to not buy tickets, to not watch that on TV, and to, turn the left's cancel culture, back on them, right? Like if they want to deprive a driver of revenue, okay, we're going to stand by him and make sure, he gets that revenue so he can live his dream. At the same time, we're going to hold them accountable. And if, they want to come after Brandon for, and try to keep him from thriving, for people saying his name because NBC chose to lie on national TV, I'll sue him for that too. Okay, bring it, Phelps, right? But, so we're going to have the car, off track. So, we painted cars ahead of Daytona, like we paid for that already. We're going to use those cars, and Brandon's going to use those suits that were custom made by designers. And we have rights to Brandon's likeness. We got rights to Let's Go Brandon. That's all on the LGB coin website.
Is there like a percentage like where you like own the team?
We don't own the team, so we did the deal with the team owner, right? But look, if enough people buy the coin, right? Like I'll buy a team.
Well, if you bought his
team, I'll race him in Indy. I'll ride him in F1.
Well, if you bought the team, what I'm saying is you could turn it into the Let's Go Brandon team, so it would just be the LGBT.
I love it.
I mean,
I love the troll of the troll. Right?
Yeah,
I don't know if the team is actually for sale now, but I love it. So,
make it a team, man.
But look, I mean, like the coin, we like just in the last week, we've been approached with like 800 influencers, like people with reach in the billions, like design firms who are creating content for the coin, who literally have like 10 billion video views and stuff, and they're like, we absolutely support what you're doing, we support how you're standing up against like big tech sponsorship, NBC sponsor or censorship, I mean, and there are people here who are sick of this. They're sick of big tech's involvement. Like one of the first people who called me was George Farmer, who's CEO of Parler, right? And they ran us as a feature you know, right when this happened, it was like the top story. And we're like, you know what, George, we want to sponsor you. We want to, you know, and have the synergy between, you know, like-minded people who are standing up, you know, against this. And, you know, I'm excited to see what's going to happen with True Social. You know, I hope that True Social is something like what Twitter was like 8 years ago, where it's just a chronological feed of people that you follow, you know, with none of this like ridiculous banning, you know, none of this like fact checking. Like, you know, Facebook has since admitted in court that their fact checks are just opinions because they painted themselves into a legal box, right? So what is free about opinion-based censorship? And, you know, it's my legal opinion that opinion-based censorship violates 230, you know, Digital Millennial Copyright Act. Okay, something that, you know, I'm studying back in law school. You know, it's been a while, but once you're arbitrarily getting involved, you know, moderation, and it's not, you know, for a factual-based reason, you should lose all protections under 230. You know, that's why, you know, one of the first people, you know, well-known Republican influencers who bought LGB was Rogan O'Hanlon, DC Draino, who's been banned by Twitter, who's suing Twitter, you know, who has documentary evidence that Twitter colluded, you know, with the government to you know, to block him. You know, that's someone who, you know, I have a great deal of respect for, who, you know, is taking the fight to the courts. And I think of all the judicial branches that are, all the government branches out there, you know, the judiciary has been the one that has really, you know, stood up, you know, for the rule of law. I mean, like, look at MF Global, right? I had a $176,000 budget. I went up against trustees who built 2.4 billion with a B in fees, like armies, like hundreds and hundreds of, you know, the top lawyers in the world. But, you know, at the end of the day, the court's got it right. Okay, the Supreme Court, you know, OSHA, the vax mandate, they got that mostly right. I mean, I think they should have overruled the, you know, the medical, you know, mandate, especially for people who have antibodies, given that all of the data empirically shows that if you have naturally acquired antibodies, you have 7 times higher immunity than from the shots, but you're also much higher risk of side effects, right? So it's, you know, pushing these shots, which, you know, I won't call them vaccines because they're not vaccines. They were, the word vaccine was Orwellianly changed to make these mild therapeutics at best, right? That, you know, it shows that maybe they get 10 weeks of immunity. That, you know, really what the shots are good at is creating annuitized recurring revenue from Pfizer and Moderna, right? They're much better at that than, you know, any kind of therapeutics. I mean, you know, things like, you know, monoclonal antibodies, for example, are infinitely more effective. And in fact, the data shows that with Omicron, the vaccines actually, or the shots have a negative efficacy, which means you're more likely to get Omicron if you've had the shots, right? Whereas, like, you know, I've gone to hundreds of parties, events, social things, you know, here in Miami and, you know, other places in the world, you know, Turning Point conventions, you know, thousands of people, never once had a COVID system. I've never had an elevated respiratory rate, nothing, right? Like, I should go, you know, put myself at risk of heart inflammation to make Pfizer and Moderna more money, and that should be legally mandated. Like, give me a break.
Yeah, there's no
more.
more.
By the way, speaking of all that, you know who I heard owns LGB? I haven't actually spoken to him yet, but I heard Ronald Malone has a fair amount of LGB. So I'd love to verify that. I don't know if that's true or not. You know, I'm a huge fan of him. And just, you know, when you talk about like integrity and consistency and being the opposite of the media who blatantly, like, you know, lies to our faces, you know, Malone is someone who helped invent mRNA technology. Okay, but rather than trying to like self-congratulate himself, I'm like, look at what I made, it's so awesome. He's like, no, there are real risks to people from it. And there's certain things about it that do not work, especially for coronaviruses in particular, right? Yeah. But, you know, I am someone who's very data-driven as a hedge fund manager, right? You know, at the beginning of COVID, we identified COVID as a major threat to the global economy in January 2020. You know, we monitor it, we watch, you know, basically as soon as it got out of China, we felt it was inevitable that it was going to go worldwide due to just, you know, the high level of contagious effect and the long onset for symptoms, you know, like the 14-day incubation period where pre-symptomatic people are the most contagious, right? But, you know, we actually closed all our offices globally February 26, 2020, right? So, like, you know, 2.5 weeks before lockdown was done anywhere in the Western world. We did that. So I'm not someone like COVID's fake, COVID's a scam. I mean, the evidence does appear that COVID was probably funded by the U.S. government in conjunction with the Wuhan Institute of Virology. I mean,
Yeah.
the evidence I've seen there, I don't know if it would win in criminal court where you need 99% proof, but it would definitely win in civil court where you need 51% proof. I think we're somewhere between the 51 and the 99%, threshold that the U.S. government funded the creation of COVID. But by April 2020, it was clear to us that COVID would be endemic, okay, which people now, 18 months later are coming to agree with, right? And that we would have to live with it, right? And, that's why I've encouraged my staff, exercise every day, get sunlight. Like those are the things that are actually gonna protect you from COVID, not, the shot that lasts for 10 weeks tops, right? And then makes you more susceptible to Omicron. Because by April 2020, we knew there had never been a successful mRNA vaccine in terms of creating, long-standing immunity, which is what the word vaccine meant before it was Orwellianly changed to fit these, mild therapeutics, into the word. And there had never been any kind of working coronavirus vaccine. Okay, like the common cold is a coronavirus, SARS is a coronavirus, MERS is a coronavirus. They simply mutate too quickly. Okay, and like all the frenzy that's created over these variants, like we knew variants would be a thing in April 2020, right? And variants are going to always be a thing. Now that this government-funded virus is out in the world, sadly it's here. Like we can't put the genie back in the bottle, and like we as humans have to accept that and live accordingly. So you can keep paying Pfizer and Moderna, now every 10 weeks to get a shot that may or may not do something. Or you could take agency for your own health, get outside, get your vitamin D, and exercise, and that's what's going to protect you. And by the way, now that the Biden administration, has seen like twice as many deaths as under the Trump administration, they hammered Trump for the deaths that occurred during his timeline when he didn't create Corona, right? And I think that people think it's only fair to blame Biden because he blamed Trump, right? But I mean, Biden doesn't really have control of who gets this or who doesn't. But now there's cases are so high, like the fear level of Omicron is so high, they basically wash their hands. They're like, there's no federal solution. And now they're coming out with the real facts to try to minimize COVID, which is stuff that people like me who actually read the data have known for 20 months that guess what? 75% of deaths, 4 more comorbidities. Okay, like obesity makes you far more likely to have major complications from COVID. Cloth masks don't work. So look, I'm glad they're being honest now. But how many people after hearing almost 2 full years of messaging to be so afraid of this, stay in your house, don't leave, triple masks, 4 shots. Like these people are going to be wearing masks for 60 years. It's like the people in the Great Depression who will talk about like how much everything costs from the 1920s, like grandparents. Like these people are going to be scarred for life because of this. And then there's a lot of people who 2 years of their life they didn't get back. They have family members who died of cancer who they couldn't hug in the hospital because of this. Like I have friends who had to watch funerals for heart attacks on FaceTime. Right. And so, the psychological trauma, like the businesses that have lost, like the collateral damage of COVID policy that was based on things that people knew were lies, it's reprehensible. And I feel that like Let's Go Brandon encapsulates, the outrage and all of that stuff, because there's been nonstop COVID lies, and that's been propagated by the same media who lied about what the crowd was chanting when Brandon won Talladega.
It's that laser that cuts through the fog is the ability to tell the truth. And I mean, you can almost see some poetic analogous symbolism to the war on terror, right? Our response to the war on terror, sure, probably was worse. Cost what, $7 trillion, 7,500 U.S. servicemen and women lives, 1.5 million civilians, erosions of our own civil rights with the Patriot Act, the creation of the Department of Homeland Security. Right, so we have that, and not only that, you could also look
at. As I mentioned, a fully armed Taliban now with M16s.
Oh, that's not even. That's I was not only that, driving variants of terrorism. you're driving variants of terrorism. You're creating ISIS, right? You're driving these things to other nations, going into South Africa. You can only hammer down on it so much before you have to start taking care of yourself and realizing that you were wrong. Now, whereas that went from 03 to 2021, 18 years of Iraq, right? Is we're now seeing it in maybe 18 months, but it's still the same. It's still the same meaning and symbolism.
We had the war on drugs before that. I mean,
yeah,
how many people in prisons? How many billions of dollars have been sent to prisons for people like minor drug offenses? Like,
yeah, no, exactly. And so what it is again, is it represents something much stronger. If 9/11 happened last year, if you started putting out podcasts or memes about do you guys really think there's WMDs out there? Banned from misinformation. This has been proven false by independent fact checkers. And not only that, it's for the greater good. You don't love America? Don't you realize that 3,000 people just died? You can hide behind that and go, you don't love for the greater good, whether it's national security or whether it's a pandemic. It's state sponsored through the appearingly unstate sponsored puppet of public corporations, Facebook, Instagram, the mainstream news. You can then put out your feelers and say exactly what you want, and you can hide behind the shield, like hiding behind Greta Thunberg. You can hide behind the shield of going, but it's for the greater good. And then it's not until it's all blown over and 20 years has gone by that, well, Colin Powell's dead now, right? Robert Gates was not, he was the other one. Who's the other? Rumsfeld's dead now.
yeah.
Dick Cheney is 175. Like, it's, you're not going to have these effects now. Whereas this is, it's almost too close in the rear view mirror. And I think that's where a lot of the discomfort comes from is, hey, normally you think you get 20 years or 50, CIA classified. By the time everything comes out about JFK, they're all dead and so are their kids. This is right here. And I think a lot of it is represented in there. Now, as someone that knows nothing about law, and I know you gotta wait. No, sorry, I glanced at the time. I had the wrong time.
Oh, we got plenty of time.
Yeah, no. I thought it said 57.
I
thought it said. I looked at 337. I thought it said 57. I was like, shit. As someone that knows nothing about law, how long does this take? When is it going to happen? How can you push it? How can you hold their feet to the fire?
Yeah, these are all good questions. So, we're negotiating with a couple different co-counsels right now. There's discussions over a concept called standing, like who has the right, like, where the choice of law is, a little complexity in the case, given that we're kind of one step removed from NASCAR. So law, there's something called, privity of contract, right? Which is that, Brandon's owner has a contract with NASCAR. We have a contract with Brandon's owner, but we don't have a contract directly with NASCAR, right? So that adds a little complexity. Different states have different laws of that. We've got LGB holders that were damaged in different states. So our legal teams are doing analysis for where's the most advantage place to bring it, to bring this promissory estoppel case. Things of that nature, right? But I'm hoping we could file maybe right around Daytona would be great, which is where our car was supposed to make the debut. Get counsel engaged, pick the right venue, have a good complaint drafted, have the economic analysis of the damages caused by that. But at the same time, the team of the coin, and there's like 90 people working on this coin daily or almost daily, right? You've got like, I think 7-8 billionaires have bought in. You've got programmers, media studs. The team is absolutely incredible, and I was generously gifted coins by Jeff Carter, who I was in the show with you last time. And he's like, "Do you want to be public?" And I'm like, "Yeah," because I believe in the Let's Go Brandon movement. So I talk to these guys like every day. There's the talent of people who are working on this coin. I mean, it puts, I think, for a lot of Fortune 100 companies to shame. I mean, the speed at which they work, like the technical prowess, doing like cross-chain mappings of the Let's Go Brandon ERC20 Ethereum tokens onto the Polygon. right? And, building like bonding pools on, Olympus, and doing like exchange listings with like major crypto exchanges. It's like 2.5 months old when like, I think Dogecoin took 8 months to get listed on the exchange. And like independent legal opinions, like the team already has a Cayman Islands foundation that's set up that's providing for like operations of this thing. I mean, like the decentralization, it's unbelievable. And like I become like kind of the face of it just because I like talking about this stuff, and I think it's important. The truth in media, like the truth in COVID policy. Those issues are very important to me. So I've used it as a vehicle to get that stuff out. But the behind the scenes people who are actually like working on this day in, day out, like they're even more impressive. So it's been pretty cool to watch. And I think what's coming for that coin is insane. Like I mentioned at the beginning, it's like 800 influencers are in the process of becoming engaged, like some of the top video production talent in the world, some of the top like TikTok production. I mean, it's mind-blowing what the team is doing.
Now, from my legally challenged mind as a biology major, the thing that sticks out to me is like back to the I forget what it's called, but people purchase things based on a written agreement, right? It's hey, I'm signing this apartment lease. Hey, you said it's mine now. All right, well, I just hired a moving company, got the U-Haul, you are now. That seems to me the most clear cut and strong case, right? Just something as
And so that's
basic
called
as
reliance interest. That's
okay.
one of the oldest principles in common law. It's
Yeah.
also known as promissory estoppel, is the more lawyery way to say it. But you reasonably rely on NASCAR's approval.
Yeah, so that seems like the most
and they're going to lose.
Yeah, that seems like the most foundational thing that someone like me or anyone would go, yeah. There's no way that can be legal, right? So now and perhaps this is now turning into a bit of a law tutor podcast. Does the amount of that, is it scaled? Does it carry more weight if it's just me that got screwed out of $10, or is it people buying a million billion LGB coins and then it goes from 300 to 800 then comes back down? Is there more weight in that? And you would know, right, because you did that whole frauding people out of billions of dollars from Goldman Sachs. Does it hold more weight when it has more monetary weight, if that makes sense?
So yeah, it's the monetary element is more. That's really what the courts are going to go based on the number of people, right? So it's one of the issues that's kind of being worked out is like who are the actual plaintiffs are going to be? Is it going to be like all the individual coin holders? Is it going to be the LGBT Coin Foundation? It might be me personally. We'll see. Those are decisions that we're still making. But as of right now, it's about 430 million in damages, right? So I mean, it's a big check that NASCAR will probably have to write here. And look, the team is working around the clock to fix that damage, but make no mistake, it hurt the coin, and I think ultimately, like, we will get made whole by NASCAR and the courts, and have a lot of other really good things happen. But I'm not someone to let people victimize people and get away with it. And they've hurt Brandon Brown here. They've hurt everybody who's bought the coin in support of the movement, and it's intentional. They knew they were going to cause damage to that. So it's malicious. And I think announcing that partnership with Carolina LGBT right the day after they leaked this revocation. I mean, it just shows like the malicious, willful intent to hurt people. And I'm going to hold them accountable for it.
Yeah, and as your track record shows, you have. Now with Brandon, because he really did he just won. That's all. He showed up and played the game. If Tom Brady's last name was Brandon and this whole thing was revolving around him, you'd go, what, dude, this is just a football star. So
Yeah.
So Brandon, if I'm correct, right, hasn't been able to get any other sponsorships, right? Though, right?
I think now after the revocation, it seems that some have kind of stepped up. I personally don't have like privy to
Sure.
the details there. I know we're doing whatever we can to make sure that he gets taken care of because of this, even though that we're not getting what we paid for, right? So we're not actually paying double to get less, but I think that that's consistent with the spirit of the coin, right? I mean, like our holders have donated about 500 grand, US dollars worth to charities, to political candidates and organizations that I think are consistent with you and I's values and stuff, right? So I mean, the group people are out here to do good with the coin, right? And we want to do right by Brandon. We want to help as many people as we can while getting the message out that we need to stop letting people lie to us. We need to stop supporting social media that's banning people and shadow banning people and censoring people. So there's many facets of good that I think that we are doing and will continue to do with this coin.
Is there any way a legal case could be framed in that this is a direct harm to Brandon, and is he protected under? And because he does technically, he is directly involved with NASCAR, as opposed to you guys, where they own Brandon and then you're working with Brandon, and it's sort of this tertiary, secondary, whatever effect. Could it be said that that there are damages done to him directly for being pulled into this as I guess, member of NASCAR? All he did was win a trophy. He didn't start the chant. He also didn't blatantly lie to say they're saying let's go Brandon, and then is that news corporation held responsible for anything like that?
Yeah, so you're saying Brandon like suing NBC, or Brandon suing like NASCAR, or
Could it be said that these damages are on him, and it's not about whether or not you guys are LGB coin or whether you guys are Home Depot, but now he is being targeted for something? It'd be one thing if he started saying fuck Joe Biden. It'd be like, well, okay, you kind of brought that on yourself. He's literally standing there with the trophy just beaming.
Yeah. So not my complete expertise in the law. For NBC, like it's not really libel, right? You have to basically make an argument that they could have reasonably foreseen him losing sponsors because of this lie going viral. I think that's probably a tough argument there against NBC. I think, conceptually, he has probably a better case against NASCAR for revoking the sponsorship. But now the fact that we paid him double, post revocation, NASCAR would probably argue that they, he doesn't actually have monetary damages because, we did the off-track sponsorship, so he got paid anyway, right? He owns coin, right? I mean, a big part of our sponsorship was giving him coin. So, I mean, he could conceivably be a plaintiff there, that the value of his coin decreased because of NASCAR's malicious, revocation. I don't know if there's any clause in his contract with NASCAR that prohibits him from suing NASCAR. That would be kind of like one thing to check. But yeah, if I, real time doing legal analysis here, I would say his best argument would probably be, for that revocation, devaluing, his coin, and that is definitely foreseeable, on NASCAR's point.
And
probably malicious given the subsequent LGBT trolling.
They really kind of leaned into it. That's one thing if you accidentally stab someone, but if you twist it in there, it's like you carve your initials. It's like, I don't know about that, man.
Even accidentally stabbing someone, you could still get involuntary manslaughter, right? So like an accident is no excuse, but they knew there is no accident here, right?
Yeah,
they approved it. It followed their guidelines. If it followed their guidance to not use the phrase "Let's go Brandon," but just simply LGB coin, right? So it's they cave to pressure for someone else, and I don't know how big their contract is with NBC. It's probably pretty big, and TV rights contracts are normally big, so maybe they viewed it, well, let's make this guy and make this community sue us. Maybe we'll settle. Maybe we'll get lucky in court, but we keep our television contract. I mean, I'm guessing there was some kind of calculus like that.
Yeah, it goes to show my legal mind. I'm like, you can stab someone by accident. No, in fact, Tommy, you cannot. So I guess
Can't do that. Don't be
can't.
so savage, nobody.
I'll stay in my podcast.
Unless self-defense. In Florida, we have the stand your ground rule, right? So if someone threatens you and you're on your property, you actually can use deadly force.
Right.
If you've been threatened here in Florida. So
Noted. One more question. Are there any other crypto sponsorships in NASCAR?
oh yeah, lots. I mean,
So,
Brandon's car was sponsored by Trade the Chain even before this.
so is there ground there?
No.
No, you can't say that.
By the way, they didn't even give us ground. They didn't call me. Phelps wouldn't call me. They wouldn't call anybody else who owned LGB coin. Right? It was just like a cowardly revocation through leaks in the media.
Is that itself illegal, or
Probably not. It's just cowardly.
just poor business? Okay, so
Well, it's just like what man, right? Like if you got a problem with someone, you're gonna on their face, or you're gonna be like, hey, buddy at CNN, will you report this because I don't have the cojones to tell someone?
Yeah. Well, again, I'm looking at it from like what would stand up legally. So, I've got you for 10
Who knows?
minutes.
They could come out and say, you know what? It is approved all along, and the car is going to race at Daytona because we haven't actually put out a statement and say that it's revoked.
That could kind of be like the mandates, right? Where it's like
hey Steve, if you're watching at home, you can still save face.
You still got an out, buddy. Art of War, give him an out. Don't make the cornered animal lash out. You can still run out the doggy door. Like you can still do it.
I could. I'd honestly rather be throwing him out because he's
no. It's what it stands for. It's what it stands for. Yeah, no, eviscerate him, salt the earth. Yeah, no, I'm with you. Go full Patton. So, how confident not how confident is it? Is it a done deal? I mean, are you guys gonna fuck him to the high heavens?
I mean, we're definitely going to sue them. I mean, there's always risk in litigation, right? I mean, there's technicalities, there's standing issues, venue issues. People fight over stuff all day long, right? But my track record's pretty good. Let's put it that way.
It is, yeah. It's again, you've eviscerated Goldman Sachs, so yeah, you're not too worried about this.
Technically, it was ex-Goldman Sachs.
Ex-Goldman, yes.
JP Morgan and the ex-director of the FBI and the ex-trustee for Lehman. So pretty big bad peeps I've eviscerated. But yeah, Corzine was the co-CEO of Goldman who brought that public. And then it's actually funny. Goldman fired Corzine. And psychologically, this whole thing in MF Global, like he said, I'm going to make Goldman Sachs regret they fired me. I'm going to turn this sleepy 200-year-old commodity broker into a global proprietary trading powerhouse. He took all the firm's capital, levered it up 30-1. Trade went against him. He hid it from the rating agencies, right? So his credit eventually got downgraded, and then so he robbed his own customers from their segregated trust accounts, farmers, ranchers, Coca-Cola, Coke Industries, Charles Schwab, all of these guys were victims of Corzine, right? American businesses to independent farmers, big and small, right? But yeah, it was actually all to try to spite Goldman. So I think in this case, Goldman actually got the last laugh.
That's making my head spin. What other things of import am I not touching on? As I showed with my stab someone by accident question, what other big things have I not brought up? Because I know I've got you for 7 more minutes. Basically, free reign.
Yeah, well, you've got me in the legal world. I think it's interesting to talk about like why meme coins are a thing.
Okay.
Right. We've seen Doge coin and Shiba coin, which were like started as a joke and been like 20, 30, 40, 50 million in market capitalization, right? So people got to ask why is that a thing? And it gets back to like backwards government policy and cronyism, right? So like the current SEC chairman is a guy named Gary Gensler, who is also ex-Goldman, surprise, surprise, who was the chairman of the CFTC for MF Global, who dealt with John Corzine on his personal email to illegally evade federal records retention rules, like Hillary. People make a big deal. Oh, her emails, who cares? No, it's like you're willfully avoiding federal law by dealing with official government business while a secretary of an agency. This isn't like some secretary, like this kind of secretary. It's like the head of an entire government agency is willfully evading federal law. There's got to be a reason. for why they're doing that, right? But that guy is now chairman of the SEC, and he has been, playing Mr. Protectionist for the big banks and suing all these crypto projects that have legitimate functionality, right? And saying, well, it's a security, and you can't have a crypto that's a security that's bought by anybody who's not an accredited investor, even though non-accredited investors could go to casinos, do sports gambling, play the lottery, things with far lower expected value. Like since like the Bitcoin ETF was denied by the SEC in the name of investor protection, it's up, I forget the exact number, but something like 80,000%, right? Okay, but in the name of investor protection, you can't have a Bitcoin ETF, but you can go play the lottery that's the government sponsored, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so like that whole argument is ludicrous, right? But so anyway, meme coins, they have no intrinsic value. Okay, it's just like there's trillions of them minted, right? And they're fractional pennies, LGB coin, just like Doge, just like Shiba, right? And it's just a digital collectible. Okay, LGB coin has the added benefit of being a digital expression of political speech. Since you're supporting the Let's Go Brandon movement, right? So there's additional First Amendment safe harbors there, right? But the reason these meme coins come out, people are so interested in crypto. They've seen, that they missed out on 80,000% or whatever with the Bitcoin ETF because the SEC protected them from that. They've seen Ethereum go from like a penny to as high as $4,800 a coin. They missed out on that, right? So Doge is something, well, the government can't legally stop them from buying it because it's not a security because it's a joke, right? And then people who missed out on Doge said, okay, well, we're gonna start Shiba and we're gonna do the same thing as Doge because we missed out on that. Right, and then LGB coin is the same thing, except instead of just being a joke about a digital dog, right? It's a meme coin with a message. Okay, so when you got all these people, how many Let's Go Brandon T-shirts have you seen?
Yeah.
Okay, this is like buying a T-shirt, except you could show a market capitalization. This is how many people have put their money in an aggregated format and look at a graph to say we are against the media lying to us, we're against the government lying to us, about COVID. Right, we're for America, return to America values, right? So it's this, really powerful thing that people are, speculating on this joke coin. And I always urge people, don't, think of it like a T-shirt. Like if you don't have a lot of money, don't go buy 1,000 T-shirts.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
But if you're rich and you want to, buy a jet and put Let's Go Brandon on it, and you can afford it, like, go do that. This is the digital equivalent of it, right? But you've seen this like perverse speculation on intrinsic valueless digital assets because the SEC has banned people from buying digital assets that have functionality, right? And fine people, and a lot of like the leading early people in crypto willfully broke the law. They took slaps on the wrists, right? Because it took the SEC years to come after them, and they made billions of dollars, by doing so. And people saw that and they're like, okay, well, the next thing is, okay, well, we could do these meme coins and, comply with the law, but play into the interest for crypto, but not have to worry about, getting fined and getting in trouble because, the government wants to slow down innovation so the banks, the brokerages can catch up. I mean, it's really screwed up. And the SEC kind of did the same thing like 10 years ago. There's a concept called crowdfunding, like Kickstarter is kind of kickstarted that whole movement. And, in the early days of crowdfunding, there were no safe harbors for that. It was the same situation where if you're not a accredited investor, you could put money up to help a startup company get started and kickstart them, right? But you can only get a T-shirt. You can't get securities in the company because it's illegal to give them security. So you're saying the government is protecting you by letting you give a startup money for which you only get a T-shirt in return. Okay, but the company could be the next Amazon and you get none of its stock, but you're being protected, right? And that's now since gone away. Okay, there's like Reg A and a couple other, safe harbors where retail can now go crowd fund a company and get equity participation. And we assume that's what will happen in crypto in the meantime. But for now, all this interest in crypto, because they're protected from functional crypto, has come into these meme coins. So it's this fascinating dichotomy, and it just shows the unintended consequences of bad regulatory policy.
Well, actually, to me, what it looks like, if just to to boil it all down is it kind of looks like the same thing on like what is LGB, what is the Tiananmen Squares. It's not just you can't criticize this or that. What it is, it's the real time lying, fiery, but mostly peaceful protests. You're seeing the detachment, the willing and conscious detachment and warping of reality as they have that power to do not just fiery but mostly peaceful, but also we got to invade Iraq, right? So we see those things. That's kind of how I see all of this. It's not just, oh, meme coin this or speech that. It's, again, it's removing their centralized power of you have to use this currency. Inflation is a hidden taxation. We're just going to blow it through the roof. Your savings don't matter. And you have something that is as it's grounded in the sense that gold is grounded, but it's without all the hassle of having to order gold and have it and hold on to it and hope it's not at a bank and hope they still have it and all that good stuff. It kind of seems like the same thing. Is a centralized power structure, a lot of window dressing. Oh, it's LGB. It's you're making no. It's the reliance on the media to tell the truth, which they're not, and then it's also one more facet of government, the ability to control the money supply and control what you do with it under the guise of we're protecting you. So really, they're both tips of two tentacles of the same thing. It's centralized power. Correct?
It's really well said. And I got to leave in a minute here,
Yeah,
but I
yeah, yeah.
want to leave with one final concept. So I sadly forgot what friend of mine said this because I love to give attributions for others' good ideas. But basically, he said governments have monopolies on two things: violence and money, right? Well, with crypto and having the decentralization, like even if I got put in jail tomorrow, right? Like LGB coin still exists. Okay,
Yeah.
it's decentralized on the blockchain. It's almost impossible to shut it down without shutting down like every computer on earth, right? And that gives it power. That means I don't have to worry about getting canceled, and no one else who owns LGB has to worry about getting canceled. And as long as people still believe in expressing their political speech by buying the coin, okay, that gives resources to do things like make sure Brandon is funded. Okay, make sure, Parler makes some money off of this because we want to support independent speech, right? Like we've got a Getter account too. I look forward to hopefully supporting Truth Social once we learn a little bit more about that. So supporting causes like free speech, donating, to candidates who are pro-truth, right? Donating to charities, helping people, right? We're helping people across the board with something that can't be shut down by the government. And in a lot of cases, places that we've donated to are people that the current administration doesn't like. Right. So that's inherently powerful. And like, I'm not a big believer in violence, right? But I am a big believer in advocacy. Okay. And so this coin and, some other ideas I have with crypto, I think crypto is thus far very underutilized from an advocacy perspective, but LGB coin is kind of a dry run for that, right? And that we are advocating, for free speech, and we're taking on censorship and this bad COVID policy, especially if the rumors are true, Robert Malone actually did buy LGB, that really makes my heart happy, right? But I think that you're going to see crypto be more and more a tool for having armies of advocacy, and you could do things like, for example, like BLM has all these paid protesters and they're like rioting and creating chaos and stuff. Well, for someone like me who believes in nonviolent protests, you could create a crypto coin, pay your protesters with a smart contract, okay, where they can afford to not work and go and do a protest. But if they get arrested, if they commit violence or whatever, their coin doesn't vest, right? So you could use that as a method for creating orderly nonviolent protests. And that's something I think I'm going to wind up doing a lot in the future. And this coin is going to be a tool for advocacy. I think taking NASCAR to court and showing them what the cost of censorship in our case is. I think that's going to be a resounding lesson in society. And and I think I'm also considering libel actions against some of these newspapers who leak this news, who a couple like Washington Post called LGBT coin valueless. Well, the time that was worth $330 million. It's far from valueless. Like the coins, there might be 330 trillion coins and they're a fraction of a penny each, but in aggregate, it's sure invalid values, right? So, if I could use that as a proxy and, hit the Washington Post, or I think Yahoo made similar claims, hit them with libel claims and, collect on them, and you show them that there's a price for lying. I think that's a common theme where this coin can be very powerful in its message that truth does matter.
Beautifully said. Mic drop. I hope Malone.
Boom.
I hope Malone owns some. If when I get him on here next, I'll ask him off camera if he owns some. Who knows? Maybe
Have you done Malone?
Malone's been on here. He's been on here 5 times. 495,
No
617.
way. That's awesome.
Came on with Joe Kent, Green Beret, running for Congress. And he came on with Dr. Aditi Bhargava, head of mRNA research at UCSF. He's been on here with Dr. McCullough. One of his last tweets before he got banned was of my podcast on him. And then 653, just last week, first episode of 2022, was with Dr. McCullough, Dr. Malone, and Matthias Desmet, who's behind mass formation psychosis, which was kind of the buzzword during the McCullough and Malone episodes. That was his last one on here, and that's my most viewed episode. Malone's a badass, dude.
Dude, that's incredible. Yeah, I believe it or not, I watch almost no TV videos, podcasts, or anything. I'm very much like a reader because I read very quickly and fact check stuff. But I did listen to his Rogan podcast. Sorry, I didn't even know he was on your show. Sorry, but
dude,
I
no
listened to the
knows,
Rogan one, and I mean, talk about an eloquent, thoughtful guy who substantiates everything he says, and like that is who big tech wants to censor. I mean, like, give me that's bad. That's like straight out of 1984. Like 84 is supposed to be a warning and not an instruction manual, but like Twitter, Google, like, I mean, they take it as an instruction manual.
Oh yeah, no, dude,
and it's awful. So as much as we can all fight back and use LGB coin as a weapon and in the war for restoring truth, like, let's go.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, no, I take no offense, dude. My channel's tiny. It's but he's awesome. I love having him on here. And yeah, I'm with you. I listen to audiobooks. I listen to about one a week. I don't watch TV. I don't watch Netflix, nothing. But I did listen to the Malone one as well. And I was like, I got to get Matthias Desmet on.
And I've never talked to him, but you guys tell him I'm a huge fan and like,
dude, I absolutely will.
Reader, everything he said. So
I absolutely will, man. Things are accelerating. It's getting wilder and wilder.
Let's go, baby.
I will put all your links in the description. As always, I'll email you when it's up. Love to have you on again sometime. And yeah, man.
Absolutely,
Godspeed.
bud. Thank
God
you for
bless.
having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on here. God bless America. Stay safe, everybody. Take care. James Koutoulas